fickle feuds unguided hands, forever molding in the sands. The thrill to kill, the fleeting gill, all washed ashore to settle still. A single day, and then it's gone. Doomed to repeat. Our will be done.
Chances are, if you're watching this, you must be a big fan of the Minecraft Life SMP. Or at the very least, you should be. The Life series is an incredibly underrated collection of hardcore playthroughs, which with great characters, tense moments, and, if you look closely, an amazing storyline. And it's that last part I wanted to talk about today. Hi, I'm Dots. I like to overanalyze games, shows, and other media, and for the first time ever, I want to ramble to other people. To start, I wanted to cover the first 5 seasons of Grian's Life SMP, for all the rich story content its creators probably didn't intend to make. There's a lot of value in all the improv if you know where to look, and I want to form some sort of a consensus about what those improved moments really meant. Before we begin, I'd like to preface this video saying, all of this is just headcanon. You're free to interpret the story any way you want to. I just hope you find something interesting in what I've managed to come up with. Also, this is my first video. I'd love for any amount of feedback, just to know if I should keep going with stuff like this, and what you'd want to see done differently in the future. I'm just a nerd on the internet, looking to connect with other people like me. With that out of the way, let's start from the beginning. Third Life was the first of its kind. It had to justify its existence, articulate what made it unique, and ultimately grapple with the unintended consequences of its rule set, and, admittedly, its roster. Right out the gate, we're given a wager. Whoever lives the longest gains something. Bragging rights, maybe? Unclear for now, though we may gain some hints later on. Each member is tasked with holding onto their 3 lives for as long as possible, before being booted out of the world entirely, left to potentially return in the next series. Players are advised not to kill each other until on their last life, but that rule generally wasn't very followed, particularly not by the person who made the rules in the first place. Grian's role as server admin is, in both concept and practice, weird. If you know anything about him, Grian will take every opportunity to stir up chaos and disrupt the status quo. Sure, his striving for something new is what brought about Third Life in the first place. But the chaos that builds is the chaos that breaks, and goes to show...
Oh, that one's real! Oh my god! I didn't think he would actually die!
Enter GoodTimesWithScar, Grian's new ally for the duration of the series by way of a llama and begrudging atonement. Scar is similarly chaotic, though for him the fun comes from living in the moment. Whereas Grian attempts to play the game efficiently to see through the challenge he created, Scar happily sets up camp in a desert and builds his playstyle around scamming the other members. When those members start messing with him, Grian plans traps and Scar plans to steal a cookie. That's not to say Scar is all happy-go-lucky. He's more passionate of anything. But his here-to-care attitude provides Grian a very different viewpoint, one which values the permanent impacts of an impermanent experience. But theirs wasn't the series' only storyline. The Castle stood tall as an impenetrable landmark. Dare to Flare was the first and, perhaps only, game in all Life series to date. Groups like the Flower Husbands, with their own series-spanning contexts, made for their own unique POVs. Everyone involved, everything created, brought life into every corner of the server, building up a dynamic community with alliances and trade of valuable resources. Whether its founder intended it or not, the Third Life server was becoming a bit of its own civilization. And with any good civilization video, there comes a conflict and a war.
I'm gonna
Get
go
it
high.
done, me laddie.
I'm doing it!
On with it! On with it, me laddie!
My lords! What have I done?
Red winter is coming, me laddie.
Rendog, the Red King, bound to his hands, hardened in the Littlewood by blood. These two were the most theatrical duo on the server, with a penchant for monologues, violence, and world domination. So when killed in a prank by Grian and Scar, the two sought revenge by building up an alliance and killing everyone who didn't join in. Grian and Scar built up their own group, leading to a server-wide war that left actual scars in the landscape. And, as the first members began to be eliminated, more authentic feelings of resentment and justice festered, leading to a final confrontation between forces of chaos and order. Though, to be more precise, Ren and Martin valued concepts of loyalty and power, concepts which they tied a heavy amount of emotionality and gravitas to. Their efforts to brutalize anyone standing in the way of absolute control was, while sinister, rooted in a desire to preserve the series' alliances into the future. Their illusion was shattered, however, when it turned out a future would never come to be. After the dust settled, after Scar killed King Ren in his hand, and the server was freed from all commitments, a new reality set in. Between the 5 remaining members, one had to be the last survivor for the game to be won. They could have waited things out, left their peers to decide their own devices, and let nature take its toll. But Beat-Up's betrayal set a new, deadly precedent. The castles and alliances built could only last so far. At the end of the day, in a competition for survival, the biggest advantage anyone could hold over anyone else is something done by their own hand. The crown necessitated violence. The default of the system was war. It's right at the end of the series where I believe the story really evolves into something special. The rising tension between Grian and Scar as they cut their way through the other members, their already fragile alliance starting to fall apart at the seams. You know that someone has to betray the other, and you're not surprised when it happens. But there's this punch in the gut feeling knowing that it had to be this way. Or did it?
Traitor! Traitor Scar!
You can kill me.
What? No.
For everything you did to me to keep me alive this long, you may slay me and take the enchanter.
No, I can't. No, I literally can't. I can't do it. Alright, you ready, Scar?
Step into the ring. The ring is sealed.
Are you ready? Scar, I don't feel good about
I got
this.
their banner. Hold on.
Scar, I'm sorry. I'm so
sorry too.
I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry. No.
It's got. Oh no! I don't feel good.
Having learned to care for the alliances he built in the moment, having gained and lost a friend, Grian was the last member on the server. He won his own game, and yet the game won him. He became invested, stuck in a system he created, and stricken by the grief of his investment, he jumps, and the system ends. The memories forgotten, a world left behind. What Third Life represents is a clash between philosophies of chaos and order, between a force of creation and destruction and a desire for things to stay the same. Grian wanted freedom within a system that he made. He fought for a paradox. Others like Ren wanted to make the most of their 3 lives but were doomed by the impermanence of their ideals. What we as the audience are left to question is what to do knowing neither philosophy won out in the end. What does it truly mean to have won the game, to have led a successful life, to have gamed the system? Perhaps the experiment needs repetition. Perhaps we need to play the game again.
We had a taste before, back in the winter. It wasn't enough.
In Third Life, everyone was getting their bearings, learning the system for the first time. In Last Life, everyone knows how the game works. Even the new members have every opportunity to learn from others. Now is when we see the game as it's normally designed to function. Last Life is the game and its players at their most quintessential. Or in other words,
I think this season we're really going to raise the bar.
this time there's a few new rules, but one that's especially important, the Boogeyman Curse. This weekly changing nuisance forces any member secretly afflicted with it to either kill another member or become a red name by default. Conceptually, this seems like just a matter of determining who's friend or foe, but when it comes down to the line and you haven't gotten a kill, chances are you're going after whoever's closest to you, which means, more often than not, your friends. It's up to the individual to hone their skills in eliminating an opponent before having to betray an ally, or, if it really comes down to the wire, sneaking up on and betraying someone who has earned your trust. The result? Survival of the fittest. Over on the more successful side, we have Smajor, aka Scott. Scott built up his alliance early, protecting newcomer Pearlescent Moon on her first night. In doing so, he earned back some of the lives he had lost when randomly given only 2 at the beginning. When other players attempted to eliminate him, more often than not he managed to outmaneuver them, and when he was given the Boogeyman curse, he took justice on a player that formerly killed him, successfully maintaining his alliances and his honor. Scott was always known for his skill in competitive situations, but what really put him above his peers is the effort he gave into helping others, even when under stress. Skill and honor. That was Scott's winning formula. Now on to the not-so-successful side. Pretty much everyone else. Some, like smaller Spains, tried and failed to relieve themselves of the curse, becoming an outsider as early as week 3. He wouldn't be alone for long though, because others like Big B and Grian made the same mistakes. One by one, an army of red names was growing, all still desperately trying to get their next kill. A disorganized army, sure, even tending to backstab one another at every opportunity, but an army willing to do anything nonetheless, and towards the end of the season, they far outnumbered the survivors. Needless to say, alliances bounced around a lot. In fact, the Boogeyman curse made this season particularly chaotic. One aspect of it I have yet to highlight is that if you had the curse, nobody else would know. As the Boogeyman, it was your job to keep your affliction a secret, and if anyone else, it was your job to suss it out. This dynamic made every session into a game of Mafia, catalyzing mass paranoia, soul-crushing betrayals, and some of the server's best kills to date. And it all culminated with the spawning of a Wither by the Red Army, with the remaining Yellow lives having to come together against and take down. The event strengthened the survivors as a unit, while the Red team only managed to lose a few members. Towards the end of the season, war had been recontextualized as the honorable against the dishonorable. The survivors against the blighted and desperate Red Army, with Joel leading the final charge. It was time for the fittest, the survivors, to prove their worth. And amidst the survivors, you had Scott. The session before the final fight, he was given the curse a second time, but unlike previously, he was in no position to take down an opponent without risking his and his companion's safety. He had to kill if he didn't want to be on red by the next session. He didn't. He let the timer run out and lost the extra life. This late into the season, Scott realized it was genuinely safer to make the sacrifice, since he was going to be red by the finale regardless. But now, he had more time to strengthen alliances and build up gear, giving him a greater advantage in the long run. Scott realized the objective, palpable advantage that altruism could play in the life series, and so he refused the curse.
I've spent all the season being honourable. I'm not about to stop now.
Scott stayed in the good graces of the survivor group, being part of the charge against the Red Army. Though there were a lot of lives lost on both sides, the survivor group came out victorious, with 4 of them left on the overworld. But what to do now? Again, the life series could only end with one victor, but the road to the last one standing didn't have to hurt. Not this time. Smajor proposed a gentleman's PvP match, with each player coming in from their own corner of the map and fighting with the resources they had on them. No ganging up on anyone, no backstabs, no power plays, just an honest game of Battle Royale where the winner proved their worth. All parties agreed, and what followed was an earnest game of natural selection. And Scott won. He proved himself as the strongest member of the life series, through compassion, skill, and integrity. He proved that the game was best won through being the bigger person, and now that he's won, he gets unceremoniously kicked out of the world. See, here's one fatal flaw about Scott's performance in Last Life. He played to win. He did everything right in getting there, but by the end he didn't have much to draw out of it beyond the crown. Scott proved that a season in the life series could be won in a way that was satisfying to the winner. But if we want to gain something out of the program, for all the chaos to be worth it, we need to determine why we should care for the chaos as it unfolds. Time for Trial 3. The journey often proves more valuable than the destination. It's the build-up that defines what we should gain from a story. The ending only ties it all together. and in this story, realizing what led up to the events that transpired, recontextualizes the narrative in its entirety. One lifer, brought down a dark path not by her own misdeeds but by the misdeeds of others. One lifer who took matters into her own hands, who should by all means be considered the hero of her story, yet is denied such by the wider fanbase. To be blunt, don't judge a book by its cover. Double Life makes a dramatic change to the regular formula with the Soulbound system. With a member's lives now being the same as someone else's, there's now a built-in expectation that your assigned partner has your back. On one hand, this made the season a lot shorter, since there were less lives to go around. But on the other, if you died, you now had the guilt of taking your partner down with you, meaning each life was doubly important. And most importantly, if you were stuck with someone for the rest of the season, you really wanted to be in their favor, which is why everyone was so desperate to find their partner right out the gate. The first session had a fun sort of tension, with the lingering mystery of who would be stuck with who. Some soulbounds were immensely satisfying to see paired together, others... But sooner or later, everyone found their soulmate, and shared their plans for a dual victory. Well, not everyone. Pearl was just as excited as anyone to find her soulbound, but when Martin invites her on an adventure through the Nether, she joins in, thinking she'll have time to find her partner by the end of the day. Meanwhile, Scott had spent the entire session looking for his soulbound, turning up empty after a long goose chase with fellow abandoned soulmate Cleo. So by the time Martin and Pearl return to the surface, the reveal is, putting it lightly, awkward. Angry at their soulmate's lack of commitment, Scott and Cleo hold a welcome home cheaters party, declare themselves a group, and reject their assigned partners. Martin, too, leaves unexpectedly, protesting alliances outright, and Pearl is left completely abandoned. Pearl wanted to be social this season. She took an opportunity for the sake of making friends. Sure, from Scott's perspective, she hadn't been taking their situation as seriously as he did, but if they had just talked about it in their own time, they would have realized what they both wanted, and this situation wouldn't have gone down this way. Now, by forces out of her control, she was stuck living alone in a tower on the far side of the server. The narrative, as it seemed, plotted against her. But Pearl wasn't content to be another piece in the puzzle.
You've done this, Scott. This is what happens when you don't want to be on the side of me. You know I looked after you last season. You know I can do it this season, but you didn't trust in me. And now, this is the state that we're in. Anyway, I'm gonna build a house.
To solve her isolation problem, she found a new partner in Tilly, the best Life series member to date. Tilly was adventurous and loyal, making for a much better partner than the one Pearl was assigned to. On the regular, Pearl would use her shared health bar to mess with Scott, getting back at him in small and subtle ways to make things even between the two of them. She even helped reverse a few narratives that others had been boxed into, helping Scar get even with Grian and giving the ranchers a pair of go horns the rest of the server were keeping from them. But it wouldn't be enough to erase the narrative that had been building around her. See, because Pearl lives in Australia, and the majority of Life members are from the UK, Pearl had to record at a much earlier time than everyone else. In fact, she had to start recording at 5 in the morning. The sleep deprivation, coupled with her abandonment issues, made for a character with an unintentionally threatening aura, one that the community would call the Scarlet Pearl. And that character would wind up in a lot of messy situations. When visiting Ren and Bigby, she managed to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, when an Enderman popped up right next to her and managed to kill them when they were trying to get together. At a Lifer meetup, she joined the others in messing around with fishing rods, only to wind up killing Joel and Etho, which fueled an intergroup conflict towards the series' end. And, of course, she couldn't get over the moniker of Scott's crazy ex. Despite everything, Pearl was rendered the villain.
You came here, and you caused death. Whether you tried to or not, there is something wicked within you.
The isolation did provide some advantage, however. As the larger conflict broke out, other lifers relied on her and her base for sanctuary, seeing her as a mutual but neutral threat. Moreover, because most soulbound stuck around one another, they made for easy targets, considering there were now 2 hitboxes you could aim at instead of just one. So, ironically, the narrative Pearl was doomed by might have saved her to a certain extent. And whatever the case, she always had Tilly at her side, a reminder of her unbending will to carve her own path. The isolation saved all 4 members of the Divorce Quartet, because by the end of the season, they were the last ones not on red. This forced the group to join together, to fight back against the army of other lifers looking to secure a victory. Venturing into the ancient city for supplies, each pairing attempted to make amends. Martin and Cleo put aside their differences for the sake of winning the game. Scott and Pearl did manage to see eye to eye that the situation was preventable, but unable to agree on who ditched who first, they separated. Even now, the shadow of false misdeeds painted real hurt out of imaginary intentions. Finally giving in to the way she was perceived, Pearl took matters of the final conflict into her own hands.
Something wicked this way comes. Something wicked this way comes.
She's losing her freaking mind. She's crazy.
Call the dogs of war.
No, no.
Till I died. How dare you?
No!
Die! Yeah! What just happened with that?
Would you call it evil, or would you call it justice? The conversation is inherently complex, and it only got more so as Pearl went on to kill Martin and Cleo, the last opponents on the server.
Where's Tilly? She's the one who's been corrupting me this entire time.
No, Martin, you corrupted her, when you abandoned her at the start. You and everyone else forced her into this role because you weren't willing to judge the book beyond its cover. And now the Scarlet Pearl has come to collect her dues. The hero of her own story, the only one left to tell the tale.
I don't feel any remorse. Why? You kill my dogs, you might as well be killing me at that point.
Well, there wasn't just one other person left. There were two. Abandoned, bitter, but deep down, still caring for one another. All that was left for them was to resolve their own conflict. The conflict that started so small meant everything from the very beginning. And...
Hi, Scott. Hi.
I didn't think it would end this way.
Neither did I, to be
I
honest.
didn't think it would come down to the two of us. There was many ways I thought this was gonna go. I don't know if I thought a finale with me and you. I mean, I thought we would win.
I honestly didn't have a lot of faith in us, but I had faith in myself and Tilly, and Tilly's now passed away, so...
Pearl, you deserve this more.
Excuse me? What do you mean? Wait, I don't know.
You do, but in the same way.
Wait, Scott, what are you doing? Scott, what are you doing?
Tilly gets to his part.
Scott! Oh no! What? Scott, did he just sacrifice himself for me? They were the last one. Scott. Yes, I forgive you after all.
Pearl forgives him, and Scott forgives her. Whether as justice for the fallen or justice for the one truly wrong the whole time, Scott knew he had to make a sacrifice, a demonstration of ultimate forgiveness for everything that transpired. But as such, the world went silent. The story of Pearlescent Moon is one of determination and justice. Despite everything the world threw at her, Pearl fought to rewrite her circumstances, and even now the fight rages on in the ways we read them. Ultimately, it was the bond shared that defined the legacy as it lives on. The memories exchanged that truly won the game of life. And yet, the story is bittersweet. For what experiences are left to be shared if, by the end, the world is emptied and forgotten? It's in that question where the true nature of the Life series begins to unfold. We've learned to care about the comings and goings of the members as they happen. We've learned to feel for their struggles and grieve for their loss. But now, those memories must be saved before they're forgotten, made important by one who could carry them on. The impact of one season will be the bedrock for the next, but without someone to carry the legacy, no. We need to escape the cycle, and we need to find out how this all came to be. I have yet to mention the Watchers. To this day, we don't know what they are, or how they came to be. I don't expect we ever will. All we know is that, whatever this program is, they're in control of it, repeating the cycle over and over, and we know this through one member alone. Martin was always a proponent of chaos. He had loyalties, but most often he strived not to be trusted by those around him. He preferred the advantage brought to him by being in the shadows. He preferred the power of being alone, and the Watchers took notice. Slowly and subtly, they influenced him, sending him messages he could almost hear, yet were projected across his mind. At first he thought it was nothing more than his conscience, but then they began to make deals with him. They promised him success for him and his team if he followed their instructions. Instructions to make certain kills, to set certain dominoes in order. It all culminated towards the end of Last Life. Martin was unable to meet their demands, and they talked to him personally.
You just meant the end of days, didn't you? The end. Done deal. Yeah, cheers, buddy. Thanks for living. One last stand, knowing that full well we'd either run out of food or patience eventually, and then what? We just kill one another? Is that it? Amusing, is it not? The adrenaline of war softens the fear of men. Their souls don't ring with the color of panic and confusion as they try to understand what's happening moments before their demise. It's delicious. Our hunger grew those months. We waited. And then all it took was a simple 3, 2, 1. I don't understand. You wouldn't. You're more of a listener. You don't comprehend. Please, just explain it to me. No, we don't think we will.
Pain. That's what they wanted. Maybe not what they were created for, but what they'd grown addicted to when the nature of the crown first revealed itself. When everyone was gone, the memories would be erased, not just for the sake of hiding the truth about their existence, but to generate as much hurt as could be manifested over and over again. Martin's memories, too, would be put to rest, but somewhere in his heart a desire for escape strengthened within him. Martin needed to break the cycle, to find and confront the Watchers. Then he wouldn't be under someone else's control anymore. And to do all that, he figured he'd need a crown. When limited life came around, time was quite literally ticking. Instead of 3 lives to negotiate with, every member had 24 hours to be on the server. If you died, you lost an hour. If you killed someone, you gained half an hour. I say all this because the implications of the rule set this time around were far more impactful than they'd ever been before. With 24 hours to spare, each member essentially had 6 times the amount of lives they usually would, not even accounting for hours came back with kills. And with that many lives to go around, the individual life was far less important, meaning kills were allowed to be, and had to be, far more frequent than they'd ever been before. Suffice to say, this season was a bloodbath. Before it became so, however, Martin made sure to set up for whatever the season would turn out to be. He allies with Smajor, a reliable teammate to be sure, but on the regular he makes his way around the whole of the server, spying in on and interacting with other members in all teams. In addition, Martin made sure to hone his own skills and retain lives for as long as possible, keeping other members on lower health than him in order to make full use of his time. For 3 seasons he had been studying the game. Now was his chance to apply what he had learned. But there was one new technology Martin would have to adjust to, the Skynet. Developed by Tango Tech, and somewhat inspired off of the earlier Red Bridge, Skynet was a system designed to automate and refine the killing process. The system was quite simple, really. From a network of high-altitude scaffolding, members could surmise the location of others underneath them, and drop TNT minecarts over the area, where potential victims would hopefully stay in one place long enough for the subsequent explosion to take them out in one hit. Deployment would almost be invisible due to the high altitude, and scaffolding was relatively easy to produce and make use of, so long as you didn't slip up and fall off. The result? Nuclear warfare. No alliances came above the others this season. No one was in a position to exact deals or claim territory when everyone was at each other's throats. Yet funnily enough, The lack of trust provided Martin a bigger advantage than he ever had before. He was already used to everyone being afraid of him anyways. As the violence waged on, the job got easier. The kills started to blend together. Martin's morality was slipping, but would all be for the greater good. Amidst the violence, there was one advocate for peace. Wanting to make good use of his time, Schizoman set up the Affirmation Station to console players and make them feel important, to make them feel wanted, to feel like there was something more beyond winning or losing the game. When his time ran out, he made the request for his team to make it to the final 3, not to win, but to feel like the time they shared mattered. And it was his closest friend, Impulse, who made due on that promise. Something in the heat of battle brought about the best in humanity, if only for a little while. Something that went against what the Watchers would have wanted. Could this have been a way to stop them in their tracks? And not for Martin, it wouldn't be. He needed to confront the Watchers, to see them for himself and force them out of his life on his own terms. And each kill was a step towards that ultimate goal. He was going to play the system at its default. He would play the Watchers' game to end it once and for all, no matter how many memories he'd have to cut down on the way. At the series' end, it came down to 3 people: Scott, Martin, and Impulse. Scott and Impulse had made it as far as they wanted to, for the sake of their teams, and on the surface Martin seemed like he was just as neutral as to who the winner should be. For all intents and purposes, the most skilled player deserved to win, and so, proposing a gentleman's match for a second time, Scott divided up the remaining hours of all members between the 3 of them, letting the path to the crown be decided by honest combat. Evaluating his odds, Martin made a decision.
I say we eat once at the start so we have full saturation, and then...
Can I get the same food as you guys? I've been eating bread, I think that's
I'm just on steak at the minute.
I mean, we've all just respawned, so we're all at full saturation.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
Nah, I don't want to play this silly game. I want to do it this way. I want to do it exactly this way. It doesn't matter if you're a mean gill or a bad boy or a neighbor or a clocker. You're all going down. None of these niceties. This is a death match for a reason. Oh, that feels good. Time is delicious.
It was all to spite the gods of his world, and yet it was exactly what they would have wanted. Martin is the only winner of a life series I feel comfortable calling the villain of his story, because he failed to do what he set out to do. Resentful and mad for power, he wastes away in the war-battered landscape around him, no closer to the truth than he was before. The hourglass runs out. The memories are forgotten. But in the descent, a new voice could be heard.
There are some who watch. We are those who listen. Not yet free, still you flee from a weighted decision. In each piece lies a piece that makes up the whole. Woven the fragments that make up a soul.
It's death that perpetuates the cycle. The pain that Grian, Pearl, and Martin carried with them resulted in their tragedy, and Scott let himself go because he had nothing left to care for. To win the game of life, one would need to remain in it, to have a purpose to remain in it, even if they were the last one remaining. Only then would the memories of everyone be saved. So long as the memories remained forgotten, the message of the listeners could not be acted on. But it wouldn't need to be, because, as it happens, one lifer was going to make the final struggle entirely on his own. Only one would break the spell of muted memories. Only one would defy the gods of the server and prove themselves the ultimate hero of the life series. I meant what I said. Okay, so why Scar? I mean, why anybody, really? But more precisely, what about Scar made him a good candidate to be that hero I'm referring to? Well, remember what he said about him back in Third Life? How his penchant for chaos came from wanting to live in the moment? Truth be told, that kind of personality worked remarkably well in motivating him, not only to win, but to help others win. and to value the memories he shared with them. Sure, Scar has a much more villainous reputation, which he often plays into, but much like with Pearl, I think you'll find there's deeper complexity to his story. And in this instance, I think you'll find that the most unlikely hero is the one who makes the biggest impression. But first, let's set the stage one last time. In Secret Life, the Watchers installed a new omnipresent force, the Secret Keeper. They were in charge of providing tasks that each member would have to fulfill, without being called out by another member. If you failed, you lost hearts. If you followed instructions incorrectly, you had to re-roll for a harder task. In short, you had to follow the Watcher's instructions now. Beat for beat. Couldn't have another close call, right? Oh, and one other thing. Everyone was here this time. Well, almost. There's a slight technicality, but with everyone involved to some capacity, this was more or less the most competitive season to date. And it was made more competitive by the arrival of a newcomer, Gemini Tay. With thorough knowledge in combat and in her teammates, Gem proved herself to be a very powerful player very early on, making good allies, building up a defensible base, completing the Secret Keeper's task to satisfaction. Even this early, Gem was set for victory. Scar failed his first task almost immediately. He was first out of anyone to fail his task, in fact. But when given a chance to re-roll, he got a few members to pity him and help him with the task, which turned out surprisingly easy. Not the best showing, but he's versatile. And for what it's worth, he was already done with his task in the first half of the session. Putting that extra time to good use, he set up Trader Scar's, an outpost meant for players to convene and exchange goods at. He even set up a courthouse, and it actually got used. Scar's reputation for scamming people in the past prevented most from really giving him the time of day. But this season, Scar was making an active attempt to build earnest trust. And meanwhile, what was Gem doing, huh? Finding the end portal, convincing the rest of the server to join her in killing the Ender Dragon, gaining a huge amount of notoriety as a result? Okay, admittedly, Gem was ahead of the competition, and she was keen to let everyone know that. Scar was currently very far from the kind of advantage that Gem held. His potential for success kept currently dormant. But forces beyond his control were about to steer him in a new direction. On the morning of the 4th session, Scar gets a new task. Do the opposite of what others tell you to do. Seems simple enough. Until he's collecting leather from Lizzie's cow farm and she tells him to promise not to kill all of them. He has to kill all of them. And then he's accidentally caught having donned a helmet in a session where helmets are largely discouraged. Because he's told not to, he has to wear the helmet for the entire day, leading even more people to try to get it off of him. But the straw that really breaks the camel's back comes when Skiz arrives in need of extra hearts, after a bad accident. He asks for hearts, so Scar has to take them away, punching him with a wooden stick. By the end of the day, the entire server is on his heels, angry at him for crimes he didn't want to commit. By next session, he's hated and alone. But like Pearl before him, he takes isolation as an opportunity. He gears up, getting some crazy enchantments. He builds fortifications that last through the whole season. He builds up his social skills on his next task, trading up from seeds to a golden apple. He even makes sure to attend Lizzie's birthday party, even if he's a bit late and needs too much of the cake. Whereas Gem took advantage of the tasks the Secret Keeper laid out before her, difficult may they be, Scar had been fighting back against a lot that he'd been given, honing his skills in the process, and his eagerness to fight was reflected in an alliance with Pearl that he'd begun to strengthen. Then a Warden and Wither spawned to fight at the Secret Keeper's altar. Just another one of the Secret Keeper's tasks, nothing too out of the ordinary. Multiple people are booted out of the server entirely, and Scar is chased by the Wither for a good 5 minutes or so. Okay, we can stop now. He's still on his 3rd life at the point where others had already lost all of theirs. He, Gem, and everyone else on the server managed to kill the Wither in a communal struggle. And while Scar is entrusted with most of the other members, his combat and survival skills are eliciting some amount of respect. For the rest of the server, though, respect levels were somewhat stagnant, and no single alliance was gaining prominence over the others. And that's when the Watchers stepped in. This session, they gave Gem a more complicated task, Zombie Apocalypse, or Tag, where the people she killed had to join her and kill others, but Zombie Apocalypse sounds cooler. Now, if I were in this situation, I might want to forfeit the task, knowing I couldn't realistically kill every member in the allotted time of the session, and even if I did, it would be a massive risk to the alliances I've been building up for weeks now. But for Gem, the Watcher's tasks benefited her big time in the past, and if anyone was going to succeed in doing this, Jem started with what she thought would be an easy kill, Scar. He didn't have much of a reputation for PvP after all. Unfortunately for her, he would very soon, because as it happened, Scar had been building up an extremely powerful set of armored weapons, and because of his isolation had grown very defensive of himself and his belongings. Scar packed a punch, the only person on the server to do so against Jem, and eventually she had to forfeit. Scar was dealing with his own issues that day. The Secret Keeper gave him the task to be a bad guy. That's it. His task literally told him that he passed when everyone hated him. The Watchers weren't even trying at this point, not for him at least. Scar was already midway into that when Jem confronted him, so when others approached, he just came across as crazy. But his rambles weren't a boy who cried wolf situation. As the server would find out, Jem was spreading the zombie curse fast. First speed-ups, then Impulse, then Pearl. One by one, the server awoke to a dark presence on the horizon, and each member was just as content as the last to continue the cycle, for the sake of the task. Scar remained a thorn in their side, but Jem wasn't content to let him go, and with friends, he was finally taken out. Already tasked to be the villain, Scar obliged in joining her army, and the rest of the server lied in wait. The Watchers were conditioning Jem. What she could gain from trusting them, from causing the chaos they wanted to unfold. The Watchers knew they only needed the right vessel through which to exact that chaos, and the server would be theirs entirely. As such, a stronger force was made manifest, an unstoppable force. Well, not entirely, as somehow Scar had accidentally managed to shoot her in the back on a raid against the survivors. But surely Scar was already accounted for. No, having amassed an army, Jem was poised to win the season. At session's end, Jem failed her task with 2 survivors, Scott and Grian. But with practically everyone else on her side at the moment, the risk proved itself worthwhile. Making a tenuous alliance with the Mounders, she planned an attack on Grian's group the next morning. But while Jem was assuming a leadership position, Scar was taking a more subtle route. Whether the Watchers intended it or not, Scar was strengthened by the trials he faced, learning to be independent and adaptable. He might have played the villain role as was forced of him, especially in his interactions with the Heart Foundation, but even in doing so, his lack of group ties made him a potential ally for any side of the coming conflict. Through endurance, Scar was in a prime position to change the game. But would he succumb to his part in the play? On the dawn of the final day, all members were given one final task: win Secret Life. Only one person could complete the challenge, but would they live long enough to hand the final book in? I've been talking a lot. Maybe I should let the footage speak for itself.
Jem, you don't want to do this, right?
No, I don't.
So maybe you should be over here.
Maybe you should be over here.
Well, this is a dilemma, isn't it?
You could join the band, Pearl.
No, my band is for life.
You want the triumphs?
Who's that? I don't know who that is. Pearl?
Scar, you chose the wrong team. I'm on 2.5 hearts. If they get it, they get the 10.
That's a good point.
I don't think I can do it. I think you're going to need to do it.
Scott!
Wait, take this, and some mutton, and
Thank
some
you.
zombie eggs, and there's a power 4 ball.
Thank you.
Go, Jen.
That was so sad! I don't even have time to process that! Hey, Secret Keeper.
At the end of the day, I want you to kill me. You get extra 10 hearts, right?
I'm not gonna kill you, Pearl. I've wronged you too many times this season. We go out together. That's like that's bad form. It's like going up in a tower. I don't agree. I genuinely don't want to win that much to kill you for that. That just feels lame to me, so I'm not doing that.
Yeah. Are you certain you want? Are you certain right now? Because
I'm Pearl. We're gonna take her down together.
Scott, if I kill her, I'm gonna have more hearts.
So be it. That's how it goes.
Why do I make it?
You're good at the game. Be proud of yourself.
2v1. Oh, you guys are gross. You guys are
Come on,
gross.
Scott, you got this. You got this, Scott. You did it. You did it, mate.
All right, Pearl. Now it's free game.
Ow. Okay, he's going straight in. I was like, okay, yeah, all right.
Come here, Pearl.
Scott, look behind you. I'm serious. Look behind you, Scott. Ah, jeez.
Oh, there was a zombie back there. Pearl, I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you. Where'd you go? Where'd you go? Oh. Really? Oh my god. How did that happen? How'd the guy with no friends win?
No one makes a wrong choice here. Everyone played to the best of their ability. But Scar won because he gave another player the chance. It was the empathy he displayed, despite everything the Watchers put him through, that won out in the end. And empathy that would keep him going even as the last one left. And what's more, the guy with no friends had no friends to grieve. Approaching the Secret Keeper, Scar sends in his final task. And he remains a hero. Admittedly, this video was long enough, and I feel like it's best to cut things off here. I will point out one thing though. In the April Fool's episode, we started seeing old alliances come back. In Wildlife, we see Joel learning from his past sessions to gain the crown. The memories are back. Somehow, by breaking the cycle, that version of Scar from Secret Life saved the stories of everyone still left in the cycle. And that seems to be defining new seasons to come. Though the program continues, its players have more freedom to play out their substantial lives. And for that, I think it's important to mark the legacy of the Big Five as its own epic. What do we gain from the story of the Life series? To me, two basic themes stick out: freedom and empathy. Grian wanted to make chaos in a box, but became confined to that chaos when he learned to care for someone. Scott put all of his effort into helping others, but without a will for freedom, he disappeared when there was no one left to care for. The lack of empathy the server gave to Pearl created a force of nature that would break the narrative at the expense of her relationships. And the lack of freedom the Watchers dangled in front of Martin created a merciless monster that the narrative would confine. And then there's Scar, who cared for the sake of caring and found freedom in letting others free. Freedom and empathy, as it seems, are intertwined with one another as much as they conflict. One gains freedom from supporting the freedom of others, and one finds empathy in the means to care for themselves. For me, that's a pretty substantial story, derived entirely from improv and game design, and I'm excited to see where the story goes from there. Good stories can be found anywhere, so long as you have the right mindset for them. I highly encourage anyone who hasn't to check out the Life series for themselves and come up with their own headcanon, because I believe this kind of constructive creativity can really strengthen a fan base, as long as everyone's free to make their own interpretation, of course. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you want to. I'm not doing this for a living anytime soon, but I'd always appreciate being able to drum up a discussion. And for now, have a great day.